First of all, I would like to wish you a good night. This is Erinç Kısa, and I am the Vice President responsible for investors in TÜREP. It may be a difficult session at this time of the day. It is not a very significant subject that we will discuss. There is a planned sales of wind around $2 billion, and we will discuss what is happening. We have Ahmet Bey, the CEO of one of the most important companies in Turkey. Also, we have representatives of AXA and Enerjisa. We will discuss about the sales of power generated through wind. Welcome all. According to the regulations on electricity market, we started the operations, and I was also working for the Ministry of Energy. Then I worked for Polat Energy, and it was published in 2009, and there have been 47 amendments, and there have also been some corrections according to the decision of the board. And according to the regulations, we see an electricity market that is very dependent on the conditions in Turkey, and we made some operations. And Polat Energy had 200 megawatt back then, and today it is 700 megawatt, and I was responsible for the sales of this power. That's why I'm talking from a knowing position. It was also mentioned today, we were not entering the supporting mechanism because it was 5.5 euro cents, and our initial contracts were around 10 euro cents with the exchange rate back then. And after 2013, Yektem price went over the market price, and we entered Yektem again, and now we are discussing whether or not we will exit Yektem again. One of the up-to-date subjects is around the reconciliation price for the wind power plants, and we are expecting the dual agreements to be terminated by the end of this year, and we have to make our applications to Yektem by the end of the month, and we discuss whether or not we will make them. According to the latest figures, Yektem operations of 3,733 megawatts have been concluded, so they will go to the Yektem market, and it will be discussed how they will be sold, whether it will be a fixed rate or a changing rate. And it is around 11,000 megawatt, which is around 14 to 15 billion dollars. And we were discussing about the investment and the operations, but there is also a life after the investment. When you buy a wind turbine of 25 years warranty, how will you do the sales? Because Yektem was 10 years before. According to the latest figures, Yektem durations will end by 2030, and they all will be operating in the electricity market. Also, another important subject was about the power outages, and now the system is supplied with power according to the mechanical installation. And as for the other subjects, there are now some agreements discussed about the imbalances. As an investor of wind power, we do sign a balancing agreement, and we enter the group responsible for the balancing, and also we got offers for energy sales. And this is now a fifth session for this subject. First of all, I would like to give the floor to Ahmet Bey, who is the CEO of EPH. He has a presentation. Thank you. I would like to thank Turep for this nice organization. Also, I would like to thank you for the city chosen, because I've been working for APH over 4 years now, and we are attending such presentations. We always go to Istanbul, Ankara, and Antalya all the time. It is always Istanbul, Ankara, and Antalya. We are in Izmir for the first time, and Izmir was actually deserving this because it is the city with the highest amount of installed power and wind power. I believe we have been unjust to Izmir by not coming to this city for a very long time. And I would like to thank you for holding this organization here in Izmir. I would like to talk to you about the markets in APH. I can't see my presentation now. As we were checking your presentation, actually I would like to use some visuals so that you will remember something from this 1 hour session with us. So I would rather have a visual behind me. Can I change these slides, or will you change the slides? Okay, you have this one to change it. The industry already knows about APH. APH is a valuable company for both the seller and the buyer. For your product to be valuable, it is an important platform. I would like to start with something different. Actually, the energy exchange market concept was formed in other countries, and Milton Friedman was the father of this idea, and this first was implemented in Chile, very interestingly, and it was then established in UK with the contributions from Margaret Thatcher. The concept of power exchange markets with the concept today comes from Fred Schweppe. It is not a very old concept, actually. It dates back to 2000, and it is a valuable idea. That's why it was propagated very quickly. Almost all the countries in Europe have their exchange markets, and I'm also a member of the European power exchange markets. So the markets are operated similarly. During the operation of the energy industries, there are some factors which affect the power prices, and sometimes they are affecting the price mechanism. If you would like to buy and sell in EPH, it is better to follow these factors and identify your strategy accordingly. And this is highly important for the profitability of your company. As the time goes, the energy investments also changed. Back then, the investments with high capex were on the agenda, and this paradigm also changed with renewable energy. It is possible to generate clean power now, and also in the OPEX side, it gives you a certain advantage. Therefore, you don't require a high amount of input, whether it be coal or gas. You don't have to buy them, and also you are able to generate the power with the natural resources from the nature. This way we are able to serve the future generations, and we are able to get rid of this input burden. And also we should be thinking about the value of renewable energy for our Earth in order to inherit a better world to the future generations. It is highly important, and this trend also contributes because it is more affordable to invest. Will it be going this way? As you know, as the time goes, everyone will be able to generate their own powers, and different players will come to the playground, and the markets will be more complicated. We have UK market, and we are using the blockchain technology in this market, and we are registering the certificates with blockchain. Well, our colleagues in Europe said you are actually declining yourself because energy market is a centralized system, but in decentralization it is different. So our colleagues thought we were doing the wrong things, but this is the trend. I'm thinking in a different way. The energy markets will not be getting lost immediately, but maybe smaller markets will be created, and this poses a very important opportunity. And I'm trying to tell you this cycle with this slide. We've been talking about storage over the last 2 days, and storage can be used in different fields. So when we say storage, we understand as if there is a storage under the wind turbine, and we will continue our lives by using it. But we will be able to use storage in very different places. The deputy minister also spoke about it. The transmission companies like TIAS actually hate renewable energy, but they are not able to say that explicitly because they are not able to control the system. We are not able to control the renewable energy. That's why I have to supply energy when you ask for it from me. Therefore, the renewable has to stay at a certain percentage, and storage will be able to change that paradigm. So the obligation of a certain percentage will be eliminated, and our market will be more flexible. And there will be an advantage of selling maybe with a higher and more profitable price. As for the feasibility of the storage, maybe it looks like there is not enough profitability, but this is a rising trend across the world, and the investments will be surely decreased. And the cost was much higher when the renewal first started, and then it went down. So if there is a high demand, there is a mass production, then it will be reflected on the cost, of course. Actually, I wanted to be working for a company that is generating power through winds, because that is the future. And where do we stand as Turkey? We are not doing poor, actually. Our position in winds is good as compared to some European countries. The minister also says we are ranked the 5th in Europe in total renewable, and I would like to focus on wind. Our position is not bad in wind, but if we were to place China here, the paradigm would totally change. When we were young, the people would say it is a bad product if it is Chinese product, and it is a nice one if it is a Japanese product, but that paradigm also changed. And there are really giant capacities in renewable. We were listening to the head of Wind Power Council, and they were talking about the aims, the targets, and the target is 3 to 4 times as compared to the current capacity. But even if that investment is made, we will still be lagging behind China. But as compared to Europe, we're doing well. As for the total share of the power, the share of renewable energy is increasing every other year. This is happy news. Is that enough? I don't really think it is enough. You will see in the other slides as well. In the last 10 years, we were able to add 1000 megawatts wind power to our portfolio, and in the upcoming years, as for the predictions of the Minister of Energy, the trend looks similar, and we need to further facilitate it, and it will be possible through storage, and the market has already shown its interests with the applications they've made. So I believe it is totally okay to use the entire investments for storage. When we discussed 2 years ago, we were talking about the market prices. It was found to be very cheap because it was 5 cents, and now it is around 20 cents, and now people say it is too high. Energy is a basic need. It may cost higher at times and it may cost lower, but it will always be bringing money to the investor. I remember the Wind Congress from the last year, and we had Ali Bey last year. He was also saying, we have 1000 megawatt this year, and please give us 2000 megawatts. And this year we have an advantage for an unlimited amount of storage, and the only disadvantage is about the funding. The funding costs are high, but regardless, I believe we should invest, and the share of renewable energy is higher than the world average, and including hydroelectricity, more than half of our capacity is from renewable, and when there is none, it gives us a weakness, and the main determinant is wind. If we have it, and if there is none, it is still the main determinant. Back in the past, before the wind capacity was at this level, the natural gas would be more effective, and we are able to see it much better today. I believe you're also following that, and there is also an opportunity for those who exist. As for the years, our installed capacity in wind increases constantly, and they are mostly benefiting from YEKDEM. It is 12,000 megawatts right now, and some of them might be out of YEKDEM, and some of them may have completed their time. Every year our capacity increased, and the power plants benefiting from YEKDEM Erinçbey was also asking whether they should benefit from YEKDEM or they should make a dual agreement. Actually, if your time is over, you have to enter the market anyway. But how will this market operate? What should be the setup of the market? I would say dual agreements. This is something that we don't have in EPH, because the reasoning of the market requires that, because I believe the bigger the market is through the dual agreements, the better it is. Then we have to go to the maturity markets, and then we have to go to WEB and GP, and then we should have the in-day and day-ahead markets, and then the balancing. I believe it will always bring you more But if it is not balanced, it will be a problem, obviously. You may see our share in the market over here. The bilateral agreements are now smaller, and the market of the bilateral agreements is still maintaining its size. It could have increased actually, because some agreements can be made through EPH, and within the total energy market, the bilateral agreements are still maintaining their importance. I believe there shouldn't be so much growth in the balancing markets. The growth actually stemmed from APH as well, because we have the price caps with the gas prices increasing before May, before Russia-Ukraine war broke out. Our cap was decreased, and since then there have been some cap problems, and then we are not able to offer the supply to the market. And then it has to find the balance in the balancing market, and the high prices might be the choice of some power plants. But whether or not it is YEKDEM, this looks like an ideal order. I believe the most important thing here is predictability. 2 years ago, I would say it is difficult to predict the wind, but today it is more possible to predict. And I think I can give a profitable offer in this market, because the predictions are more close to the reality. On the other hand, the day market is still a good opportunity, and the big fastest growing market is the day market, and our growth in the day market increases stably, and this is an advantage. And you may see its effect as the time is longer. There are still some differences in predictions. There are some talking for 5 minutes only. As such times shorten, there will be another opportunity for those who place an offer. I don't mean to say that we will create this market, but maybe in the future you could know where you should be doing the lobbying activities. As for its power in merit order, we can see that the share of renewable is increasing every other day, and over here there are very big opportunities for the wind powered plants. And when you are able to predict well, or when you start the storage, it looks the game will change. The merit order, the pricing, the profitability, everything will obviously change, and there will be a different position then. Another opportunity comes with the carbon markets. The power plants do not emit any carbon. That's why it is both cheap and it will not be affected by the carbon pricing. Once we enter the carbon market, the cost will be increased significantly for the other power plants. But in order to seize this opportunity, the YEKTEM term has to be completed first, and then you need to optimize it and price it accordingly. I am also seeing some threats in addition to the investments opportunities. You complain and I also complain. My complaint should be off the record. So as a PH, the concept was not really great for us, but when the regulatory authority asks for it, we have to follow it, and we criticized it as well. And right now Europe is also implementing something similar, and right now I think I didn't need to be not okay with that. As a PH, we collect around 1.7 billion Turkish liras. This is a very significant figure. And this year, the transactions were around 500 billion Turkish liras, and the unpaid collectibles were very small, that you wouldn't even feel its effect. And it is thanks to this system, otherwise the producers would say they were not able to collect their receivables. But now when I look over here, if there are differences between the pricing and the production, then the regulators may wish to benefit from this advantage. Maybe I should ask you something and you could continue later on. We are able to do a live voting as well. You've listened to Adnan Bey. He is an investor and he owns 50% of Polat Energy. Somares has 212 megawatt installed power, and it will be 10 years next year, and it will exit YEKTEM. So we can sell power with bilateral agreements. Should we buy USD or Turkish lira, or should we leave the power to the market? Who says they would like to say on a fixed price through bilateral agreement? Well, I see 4 hands raised. You don't want to take the risk, obviously. Leave it to the market. We have a price of 8 euro cents and we don't know if it will be higher or not. 3 people says we should leave it there, and the rest of the people are indecisive. So we have an investor board meeting this month, and I need to tell them what I suggest them to do. We have Murat Bey here as well. As we make this decision here, that is the case for the power plants that are not in YEKTEM. As for those in YEKTEM, we have to think about it, whether or not we will enter. And what has been the effect of the settlement price on the electricity market? Thank you very much. I would like to thank the participants as well for their attendance at this time of the day. Actually, maybe we would answer your question differently in the past years. Every year has a certain amount of ambiguity, but this resource-based supporting mechanism has made such ambiguities even higher for the Turkish markets as well, because the mechanism is for 6 months and it is updated every 6 months, and until April there is a cap price. It is around 8.3 cents, and the escalation is different. For those who don't know, this is the cap price. We're not actually selling it at 8.3 cents. It is the cap price. You may sell it for 6 cents as well. Actually, maybe we should talk about those complications without not so much detail. I can say this mechanism is different in terms of the guarantee left in the system. In terms of the cash flow, TEYAŞ blocks the number. Actually, 8.3 cents is an hourly price. When you are above 8.3, it is limited there. And as for the lower prices, when the demand is high, you can see different results. And what are the numbers that you compare? Like a power plant in Yektem will be subject to a purchase guarantee of 7.3 cents. And in terms of mathematics, the numbers are very close to one another. And also, there are some risks and opportunities in terms of the legislation. Maybe after April, OAF should be eliminated or maybe flexed, and that will actually change according to the risk appetite of the investors, because such changes, when you enter Yektem, you have to manage a higher amount on a daily basis, and we may sometimes see they need to hedge themselves on the daily basis. Some would like to achieve the highest cash during the day, and it is a challenging year for the investors actually. And I should add one more thing for the future: AUF and similar mechanisms and their impact on the markets. We are able to see it today, and there is a very significant interest by the people. And the good news has opened the path for adding further capacity. So we're talking about a new capacity of around 5,000 or 10,000. And the biggest problem is that we are competing while distributing the capacity, and then the prices are not feasible. There is a stock of projects, and the current mechanism means an allocation without any competition, so maybe there will be less competition, and this signs some things for the investors of the renewables. The renewable mix will be increased, that is the nice part, and for the existing ones we will see that the volatility in price has increased even more. The capture price will be much lower as compared to the other power plants. We are seeing 11% renewable and 25% natural gas. In this mix, we're not expecting any natural gas investments in the country. Even if the project starts today, it will be commissioned within 3 to 4 years at minimum. So I think we should be ready to see even lower prices as the renewable energy capacity is increased. There are also positive things. With the new coming winds, there is no purchase guarantee actually. That actually means the renewable PPAs will be further increased in our industry. We will see long-term bilateral agreements, and it will also help the existing investors, because today, even if we exclude this year, the bilateral agreements are very low, and the investors do not really have this perception, and we might see that the consumers have been subject to very different energy prices, and this has pushed the consumers to take the power prices under control. We might see companies who are consuming power actually. So we will see that more often, and maybe it might be raised. You've been speaking about the imbalance prices, and those imbalance prices means that this prices will be further reflected on the people, and that has been the case in the industries with a more developed market, and power plants will not really care about that amount as compared to their turnover, but as more solar and wind power comes, that will be reflected somehow, maybe in order to promote the batteries, or maybe in order to promote a better management. I believe people have understood your message. Obviously, the imbalance cost will be increased, and right now the people put a price for their power. Maybe carbon incomes will be added on top of them, and the imbalances will mean a cost, and obviously it will be increased in the near future. And in 2023, more solar power plants will enter YEKDEM, and their prices are already high, and they will enter the system over $73, and there are also those who have bought domestic blades and turbines, and their prices will be even higher. So what is your expectation of price for 2023? What will we say to the bus? I would like to thank you for your participation. I should also thank TUREP, I believe, because this organization has a much higher energy than I was expecting. So thank you very much for hosting us. And before the trade part, I would like to give an example. This is something that I've been dreaming of in terms of wind. When we were children, the richness was having oil, but probably 20 years later, we'll be looking at the wind turbines, as a measure of wealth. And we're talking about storage and hydrogen, and maybe it will be even more present. The balancing mechanism, we cannot really discuss it because this has been enacted through a law. The Turkish Grand National Assembly enacted a law around this, and of course the investors are losing money, but on the trade side there is now no bilateral agreement on a fixed price, and we're talking about investments through the bilateral agreements, and the bilateral agreements have been terminated. I should also tell you about the European example. Actually, the reason why the bilateral agreement on a fixed price has not worked will be a victimization for the wind power generators, because the wind is high, the price is low, the wind is low and price is high. Therefore you have commodity, you don't have the money, you have the money, there is no commodity. When you say you have produced well and you will make more money, but you cannot make that money. For example, October 14th Germany price, 28% of the installed power in Germany is wind, and on a windy day it is 83 euros, and on a windless day it was 283 euros. So it meant 75% decrease in power price. Therefore, a wind producer, maybe when Turkey has 30,000 or 50,000 megawatts of wind, it means that the wind power generator has to sell beforehand. And Murat Bey has already given us the YEKDEM perspective. As for those who are outside the YEKDEM, they have to sell their power on a fixed price for 2023, because everyone has a different job. The producer hedges its power, and if it has given a promise to the investor, it will be guaranteeing that, and it will be sold to the end user. And there is also an advantage. The capex for wind actually is around 20 years, because the producer is undertaking the risk of the wind investor, and the consumer, when the electricity prices went 1,000 euros, they're actually protecting themselves against that risk. So this is quite an improvement for each party. So this is what we need to speak. Actually, I think we've been able to mention how important it is. The first idea that comes to my mind is as follows. In Europe, they have the intermarginal price, and the biggest discussion there is when you are buying it about 180 euros, should the reference price be PTF or the bilateral agreement price? Because if it is PTF, then no producer will make sales, but when there is a bilateral agreement, everyone will be able to manage their own risks. Most probably it will be bilateral agreement price, because we are seeing that during the days of negative energy prices, it was 83 euros. Otherwise, these people will lose a significant advantage. Every bilateral agreement is reported, and the Market Surveillance Commission follows those prices, whether it is making sense or not. And I think this reporting system should be in place in Turkey by 2023, and the trade for the bilateral agreements should be opened. Otherwise, this will worry me, because most probably next year we will see in April energy prices 500 liras, and if there is no wind, it will be 4,000 liras. Well, by the end of 2022, the exemption will also be ending, and therefore all of them will be the reconciliation price. Will we get an offer based on PTF, or should we receive it in USD or euros? There are companies who have euro debts, therefore it is much more complicated. We'll be in the group responsible for the balancing, and maybe we could get information from Murat because he's with one of the groups who's responsible for the balancing, and the investors were collecting Turkish lira megawatt, and some were based on the index, and it is now complicated as well. Actually, I want to say that in order not to have any misunderstanding, during the time when AUF stops, it is not possible to have a bilateral agreement on a fixed price. So one of the questions in the survey is not applicable in this case, because if the electricity price is higher, then you are not hedging it, and the difference is reflected as per the legislation. So as long as we have this legislation, we cannot have a fixed price sales, and the biggest harm is on the producer's side, because it is a difficult resource to manage the seasonality and other changes within the day and within the week. Actually, balancing market is very similar to the group responsible for the balancing, or the cost of imbalances could be evaluated differently up to 1 year ago, and now it is totally different with the increase in the electricity price. We are seeing the prices between 0 and 5,800 liras. There is still a potential to see 0 when we see low consumption and high amount of wind, and therefore the difference is very high right now. It is 25 cents, and there are different resource types like the natural gas plants, and it is around 20 cents, and there are also imported coal plants that are lower, and lignite plants. Ahmet Bey also spoke about merit order in his presentation. When there is an imbalance in the system, the price might be 1,000 immediately, and the difference is reflected on the producer as the imbalance price. I don't think those contracts will be fixed anymore, because all of them has to be indexed to the gas prices. But as a service provider, we're serving more than 50% of the wind capacity in Turkey. We have a volume around 5,700 megawatts, and it doesn't have to be indexed to PTF. It may be very high, because the difference between the cost of the resources is very different. The electricity price is 25 cents, and we will see the price in a very wide space. Therefore, it is a difficult year this year. I believe the contracts will be reliable. Last year, 2022, was the year when we experienced the highest change in the price, and there have been losers or winners in this price differences in all the bilateral agreements and the balancing contracts. Some parties may have had a good profit and some may have lost, but I believe 2023 will be more settled. In terms of the price, the producer is not able to benefit from it because of the AUF, but I believe we have seen the peak. And you asked Yusuf Bey about the price level, and I don't think anyone will say the prices, but we could say, although we are disconnected, we have small connections with the European countries. In the east there is no market, but we are saying even our highest cost natural gas resource is below the existing prices. So this means The future expectations also suggest that we are seeing a peak in terms of the cost, and there might be a decrease in the cost, but the groups responsible for the balancing will be demanding the market index, I believe. Do you think we can have a fixed agreement, or should we enter YEKDEM or not? Well, there is nothing I could say. I'm thinking of it. I know Yusuf Bey because he has been in the business for 15 years now, and he has been engaged in the market since 2009. Well, the estimate for the electricity price is something that cannot be predicted. We're in a non-hedgeable world, and the electricity price is totally geopolitical, and gas is the most political commodity on earth, and the recession in Europe and the coal prices they all will be determining the prices, and that would be difficult for anyone to estimate about this. In Europe, we can see Europe has half the gas it needs for this year, and the rest will be supplied from Norway with LNG. So that is the case for this year, but what will happen the next year? So we will see how it happens the next winter, depending on how cold this winter is. So we have to see whether or not this winter will be cold or not. So that would be very difficult to say anything about the price. Maybe there will be a truce and pragmatic ideas will emerge, and the gas may flow through different resources. The gas prices may be reduced again. It was 340 euros and now it is 140 euros. As for the other question, I should say very explicitly, the price in balancing is the maximum price. Because it is the maximum price, this is actually an option. It is very close to YEKDEM price and it may go down, and you have to decide whether or not the supporting price will be eliminated. I think we should ask this question to the head of Energy Markets Regulatory Authority. Probably they will not be able to answer as well. Well, thank you for your answer. I would like to go to Underby now. While managing those plants, we are using the software of APH. We have to use other softwares as well. We cannot use the Excel sheets anymore. So evaluation of the past data, because we're working with a high amount of data. The production values, the hourly production. So we require some softwares for all of them, and Önderbe will tell us about the software that is the market leader now. So we will learn from you about SmartUs, and well, Smart Pulse is something that we have been working for more than 10 years, and it has been called SmartPass for 5 years now. A SmartPass business is a software solution for short-term energy needs. I worked in the energy market on the commercial side, and with the wind power plants increased, there was going to be a need, obviously, so we commissioned it in 2018. For the day ahead market and intraday market, it allows the power plants to trade within the market. I believe we have contributed to the increase in the intraday market. 136 wind power plants are now being served by us, and it has a capacity of 6 gigawatts totally. And by using our software, those clients also were engaged in the market. And what is the service that we render? Well, the essence of this business is the accurate estimation. So it is highly critical here. And when you make an estimate one day earlier, it doesn't really work. I have been engaged in the business for more than 10 years, and the estimate performance has not changed. All the different players were engaged in the market. But if you are able to monitor your power plant live, and if you can update your estimate algorithms, then your estimates will be improved in the short term. Maybe it could be possible to do it with human power. Managing tens of plants becomes impossible, and as Smart Pulse we are offering this service from end to end, and we worked together with the groups responsible for balancing, particularly AXA, and they're now trusting us. And also in Spain and Portugal and Bulgaria we offer similar services, so we are exporting the software abroad. The biggest investor for us is always the clients that we have, our partners, and while doing that, the technology is developed every other day, and we're bringing new things. This is a very complicated technology that we use while trading live 24/7, and trade over 500 megawatt is only possible through our robots, and we would like to further expand it. Such an operation cannot really be managed without any software. Once the batteries are installed, these need will be increased exponentially. So in this case, you will say we have 10 megawatts surplus. Should we sell it to the intraday market, or should we keep it in the storage? So that will be a technology-based market mostly. As far as I'm concerned, you are also negotiating with other countries to sell your software, and you also have to work with other market operators abroad. So what developments are awaiting us? Can you give us some suggestions about the future? EPH should be appreciated because they are developing their own software. We are thankful to Ahmet Bey, and also one of our colleagues who put a lot of effort into development of the intraday market in Turkey passed away recently. I would like to commemorate him as well. We're operating in various countries of Europe, and EPH is a very exceptional market operator. We had a chance to see how exceptional they are. Due to various conditions, there are different details, but the overall concept is the same. We are operating in Spain, Portugal, and Bulgaria, and the presence of renewables is the most important factor. Uh, there are different structures in the market. I should also tell you about the deviation in the estimate. For example, we have the deviation. For example, the deviation is around 10 to 11%, and the deviation decreases to 7 to 8% as compared to the installed power. But as you may see, the deviation is further decreased later on. So when we add the estimate algorithms, we are able to see this. It is like an engine. It is updating the estimate all the time. So we have created these algorithms, and we have seen that the companies in Europe asked for two things from the operators in the market. First of all, they would like to be able to operate very close to the closing of the gate, around 6 minutes. I mean, once the gate is closed, even if you have the best information available, you're not able to trade. And the second one is 50 minutes transaction. In order to offer this, not only EPH but also the system operator has to develop this mechanism. When we adapt our software to Europe, we are having difficulty with adapting to such different products. But I can tell you that this allows the wind operators to be more effectively operating their systems. Maybe we can talk about the carbon now. Maybe you could open your slide again. Let me say a few things about what has been said so far. I would like to thank Önder Bey. We are also having problems with these robots. Those demands for purchase and sales also give us a difficult time. So we started our operations to update the software, and the buyers and sellers who do not have the system available on their infrastructure will have a difficult time, because there might be purchase and sale in very short terms during the day. As for the carbon market, I was talking about this point. Carbon offers a very good advantage, a very good opportunity for renewables. The supporting will be ended soon, but as an idea, it looks as if it will stay. If there is a very huge difference due to carbon, maybe that could become permanent as well. I asked Mr. Minister, and he said we will evaluate it when the day comes. Emission trade system has become important for all the producers, both in Europe and in Turkey, and also it has become very important for the companies selling products to Europe. Emission trade system is partly implemented in the European countries, and at the beginning of 2026 it will be completely implemented, and the carbon emitting companies are asked to decrease their carbon emissions, and there is a certain limit, and if you go below that limit, you will be doing something good, so you will have a certificate and to sell your surplus, and if it is higher than the limit, you have to buy this certificate. So there is a certain cost for it, and the cost has increased significantly most recently. Those limits are more flexible in Europe right now, but I believe it will be more tight in the future. We're not implementing those limits in Turkey yet, and when we look at the commitments of Europe about Paris Climate Agreement, I believe they have very assertive targets. Still, I believe they are acting with our reasoning, even if they look more systematic than us. They would like to set a target first, and it is as if they may change if there is a need, because Trump says something else and Biden says something else. After the energy crisis, I found myself right, and they are now deviating from the targets even more with the operation of the coal power plants. Therefore, the balance of the polluting and pollution decreasing companies is not very clear to me, but when you ask EU, they have their targets very clearly. In 2016 January, they would like to implement it, and if someone is going above the limit, they have to submit their certificate, they say. So the emission trade system, regardless of the conditions starting, we have to be ready. The carbon market will be giving a certain limit to all the factories making emissions. So they will say if you go above the limit, you will be able to sell your certificates, you will be able to buy some certificates, and if you are selling to EU, then you will not pay taxes. So in EPH we have our markets, and the trading will either be established through EPH or Istanbul Stock Exchange, and the operator of the system will be defined. There will be exchange markets, there will be primary and secondary markets. Some of them will be running through tenders, and some will be acting as the regular sales in the exchange market. The Ministry of Energy and Trade are working heavily on this matter, but the EU side is not clear yet. How much will those certificates be accepted by EU? Currently it is 70 euros, for example, and if it is 40 over here, what will happen to the difference of 30? Because each will be carbon certificates, so they have to be clarified, and as you can see, it will mostly affect us, and therefore this area needs to be studied very well. And in order for us to reach our climate targets, we have to run this as well, and we're not really very much aware of this. And the industrialists have come to realize it. As consumers, we say we are environment friendly, yet in practice we're not doing this. I mean, the people are living in the concrete buildings anyway, so we're not really intending to protect the environment. We are only doing it when there is an obligation, and the industrialists also do it because there is an obligation. Abdullah Bey also mentioned we have the YEK-G for the wind power producers and other producers. This is highly valuable. For example, I mean, we need your support as well, and maybe we need to promote it more. the companies producing renewable energy will actually make money out of this business. This means an extra income for them. The prices are now low, but as the demand increases, I believe the prices will also be increased. The number of certificates is very high and the number of buyers is very low. That's why the prices are low. When I see the CEOs of major companies, I say to them, for example, Vodafone bought it and it is very reasonable price, and they are able to say they are the companies using the renewable energy. Therefore, this is quite a nice mechanism and it is a very reasonable price, and it is also supporting the investment in this regard. Therefore, you should tell the relevant companies who are consuming high amount of energy so they can also use for their sustainability reports. The major companies are now using it. They are saying they are using the green certificate and it is also accepted in EU. There is no official accreditation yet, but in the international reports it is being used by the major companies. Therefore, this certificate should be told everywhere. And what is the difference between the green certificate and the carbon certificate? The green certificate is on voluntary basis, and we are documenting your production, and the companies who say they would like to use renewable energy buy the certificate, and this is extra income for you. The carbon market is different. In the carbon market, it is based on carbon emissions. Certain limits are put, and if you go below the limit, you have a chance of producing the certificates, and if you go above the certain limit, then you have to get those certificates that are already produced. Well, that's all I would like to say basically. I would like to refer what has been said earlier. The prices before the pandemic was 4 to 5 cents, and the people were already shopping and making incomes. I don't like the cap, and despite the cap, the prices are doubled almost, and I'm actually worried about this industry because for the renewable, it is already very profitable. Maybe the importers, the gas importers may complain, but the other producers should be happy with this because although the prices are at the cap, they are still high. The smallest cap is above 8 cents. Although they are sometimes lower than 8 cents, it's mostly around 8 cents. And therefore, I believe there is now a profitable market. Of course, that would be better if there was no limit, but then there is the public authorities. Are they affordable prices for the consumers? But the reflex of protecting the consumer is at place. I believe the prices are very well now, especially for the wind. There might be some problems due to EU regulations, but the web market could also be utilized. You are right that the prices are high as compared to last year. For example, considering the feasibility of a power plant manufactured, constructed in 2007, and the prices they have in 2022, there is something over there. And secondly, the earnings of those power plants are used for the construction of the new plants. and there's been an increase in their cost. That will actually prevent the investment, but the current prices will not indeed prevent the investments. I believe everyone will be setting according to their installed power. The financing is now in not really great. I believe if there are good funding capabilities, then there will be much better investments. In terms of carbon trading, what can you say about the current operations in Turkey? The Green Deal is on the desk as well, on the table as well. I think it's even more exciting to speak about the future. The obligatory carbon market will be here soon. Obviously, that will bring along a certain cost for some of the industries, but the income collected from the obligatory carbon market, if it is to be transferred to the renewables again, that might open the path for Turkey. When we look at it from the side of the wind investors, for example, when you construct a wind plant, you actually shut down a coal plant, and this is called offsetting. And I believe in the obligatory carbon market, if there is a right of offsetting for the wind plants, maybe that could be even a better supporting mechanism for the wind. That means as you construct a wind plant, you offset a coal plant, and you are able to offset it in the obligatory carbon market. I believe that would be great, but this is a global matter, and basically what they say is my industrialist is in a disadvantaged position because of the carbon market, otherwise I will get that money from you, says EU. And there were similar offsetting mechanisms in EU in the past. And if that right would be granted for the solar and for the wind, and if that carbon offset right is granted, that would be great, and that could be even more valuable than YEKDEM. And I would like to thank EPH, because YEKDEM is a green energy market established much earlier than the EU countries, but it is very cheap now. We are trading YEKDEM and other green energy certificates, and they are actually getting it because either the bank wants them to get it, otherwise they will not be granted any loan, and or sometimes they have to buy it for sustainability reports. Actually, the finance world is making it an obligation, and in the future there will be a more active market. It is now very cheap. It is now 0.5 liras. It is very low. And I'm feeling offended because some companies are actually promoting that they are green by saying that they have this certificate for 4 liras only. I believe this is a very good improvement for our country, and the R&D support will probably take us even further, and it will make us even more competitive. There is a right to get a license for the plants without a license, so 10,000 megawatts will be licensed there. and along with your software, what is your idea? They're not feeling the imbalance right now. They are in a group and they don't really know, and there is a silent majority there who will become a market player, and 10,000 megawatts will maybe mean 5,000 participants and maybe even more. I believe that will be a very big operational burden. Under K3 portfolio, there is now a protection shield for both themselves and for the network. They're not balancing independently and individually, and as K3 portfolio, all the unlicensed plants are calculated collectively. But when what you've said comes true, like some societies also asking for a license on a voluntary basis and wishing to become a market player, it means tens of thousands of participants coming to the market. And that would not be true to say the ESG only. The aggregator companies will bring together those small companies, and the questions you're asking for own portfolio will have to be answered for the plants of 0.5 megawatts or 1 megawatt. That monitoring and individual forecasts problem will come true for all those plants, because it will not be possible to manage them all centrally. So maybe someone will be monitoring it for all of them, on behalf of all of them. So it is not the case for the licensed plants only. For example, if you have solar on your roof, that has to be forecast as well. For example, there are solar roofs of 2 or 3 megawatts, and a company who is in balancing will probably be doing similar activities for them. So that means a digitalization. I know that has been spoken a lot. I'm even feeling bored about the digital transformation concept, but that is the reality. You cannot be doing it without the digital. Also, with more battery systems, the energy companies will have to differentiate themselves, so probably they will offer flexible tariffs to their own customers, or they will have to use some other solutions to sort out the problems of their clients. When tens of thousands of participants come to the market, the consumer himself will be the biggest challenge for us probably. So the entire ecosystem will be sorted out on the digital solutions in the local markets. So when the plants without a license become licensed, they will have to do exactly what the licensed plants do right now, and we are intending to be their partners in technology. So it will be a bitter experience for them, I think. Maybe we haven't felt it already because we have been in the boiling water since the very beginning, but they will jump into the boiling water immediately. I would like to ask you about the storage activities. We learned about it in the energy coordination meeting. Then the decision was made and the law was enacted, and new regulations is almost published in the official gazette. So we are expecting it to affect both the existing plants and the new ones. So there are also those who are applying for independent storage facilities. So that will bring together a change in the game. And I would like to hear from Murat Bey, because they have also made an announcement most recently. So what will be the effect of the storage facilities? So the fastest one will be commissioned in 2 years probably. That's right. Our group announced to the CUP we have an investment plan before the relevant law and the regulations are published. We were also discussing with Yusuf Bey before. Maybe we could have discussed about the role of storage, but the way the existing storage is being encouraged is a radical subject, I think. Maybe you will see the Turkish Society of the Battery Producers. It has already been established actually. Because we have to be realistic. The preliminary condition for establishment of the wind power plant is battery, but for economic reasons it may not be the best option available. But in the end, that decision will maybe help Turkey own the batteries as many as the entire Europe. There are some battery facilities already in our country, and while evaluating it, that should not only be considered as the future of the wind power plants, but also those battery producers will help change the profile of the power generation, and for both the investors and the operators it will change a lot, and it will bring together many investments in producing part as well. If the regulations is published quickly in the upcoming months, I believe some batteries will be commissioned, and although there are some problems about the supply sides, it was also mentioned by the Ministry of Industry, there are all other subjects Turkey is now considering, and on the path to licensing, the storage is the preliminary condition, so it will be a totally different subject then. So for the operations of the entire market, all the rules that we know will be completely different then. There are people from different backgrounds, I know, but we don't have this capacity available anywhere near, because that means changing almost all the factors that we know of. As I said earlier, our group would like to become a leading player over here, and hopefully it will be beneficial for more investments in renewables. I think the battery investment is important because this is a brand new subject. There is now an electric car trend across the world, and the most important part is the battery. If you buy yourself a Tesla, then you have to throw away your battery in 8 years and you have to get yourself a new one. Therefore, battery is strategically important, and maybe the electricity industry, energy industry will also support it, and it will help us go to a better direction. If you add 10,000 megawatt to the market, there will be no imbalance then. So there is no application in the near geography, but I don't really know much about the battery technologies. Maybe it will be a new technology, it will not be an existing technology, because nowadays they are talking about not using lithium-ion batteries, so that will be quite an exciting subject. And if there is something that we can financially manage, I believe we can also invest there. Well, I think we will go according to the public authorities' decisions. As a group, our imbalance is part of our turnover, and taking a precaution for this purpose means 4 to 5 times of the maintenance. And what is your opinion about the batteries? Yes, we have something in our mind, but that may turn into a problem indeed, because the coefficients will not remain as it is. Yes, probably. But I would like to draw your attention to something different. This is originating. I'm working with a company from Spain, and we're working in order to fill and empty the battery according to the forecast within the day. So we have 1 hour for trading. It is actually something nice for the company now, but I believe when there is such a huge battery investment in Turkey, there will be this problem. But I don't know what the solution is now. So we have an hourly operating market here. So in the last 10 minutes you have almost perfect forecast, because you have already experienced the first 50 minutes of that hour and you don't have the last 10 minutes, so you almost accurately know your commercial position for that hour. So you will use your battery to either store or empty your battery in the last 10 minutes. So commercially it will balance your activity, and this is quite nice financially, because the company is also very pleased with it, because there is almost zero mistake. But as the network operator, you had the imbalance for the first 50 minutes, and for the last 10 minutes that was contrary, so then you had extra energy in the network, so the market will be 15 minutes then. Yes, that will have to be like that. I believe it will be more of a burden on the network, so that problem may not be resolved with 1 hour operation. So that was my observation. Ahmet Bey, what do you think about this? Well, we're ready for it. In terms of infrastructure, we can easily switch to 50 minutes right now. It totally depends on the infrastructure of TEİAŞ. We have not worked on 5 minutes yet, and probably 15 minutes will not be even enough for this battery system. There is no problem for us because we are digitally working companies. We develop our software accordingly, but it is more important that the companies who are in the operation part are ready, because they have a more difficult job to do, but they will want it even more than us. Alright then. Is anyone wishing to add something? Is there any question from the room? It will be very difficult to bring together this group again. Or around digitalization. Well, I understand that there is no question. Thank you very much for your participation, and I wish you a good night on behalf of Turek.